So there's been some breaking news in the MMA scene recently. Apparently, Sean O'Malley actually did beat Merab Dvalishvili at UFC 306, and he was robbed. Personally, I do believe that Merab did win that fight, but with MMA Guru coming out with an hour-long video going frame by frame and breaking down every single strike in the first and third round, he scored the fight for Sean O'Malley. Now again, I don't really agree with this. I don't think you can score that fight for O'Malley. I think going frame by frame versus watching it in real time are vastly different. And I think if you were to break down every single fight frame by frame in the UFC, I think we would have different outcomes for almost every single fight. But that's not the point that I'm trying to make for this video. There's actually a moment inside of that where MMA Guru talks about how it's damage-based scoring, and he was kind of uncertain about it. I'll play the clip for you real quick.
Nowhere in the rules does it say the word damage. I think it does. Impact, and the very next sentence of paragraphs explains grappling, control, and breaking the opponent's spirit as examples of what impact means. You can't sit here with a straight face and pretend like we've been doing damage-based scoring for the past 5 years, and immediate damage is what was assumed from the scoring. Am I in an alternate reality where this didn't happen for the past 5 years since COVID?
And so with that, I am inclined to believe, I've always heard the term damage-based scoring, or that guy had more damage that round, so therefore he wins that round. But is it actually in the rule book? Is the term damage-based scoring actually used in the unified rules of MMA? Do we actually even take visible damage into consideration for fights? Or do the rules just outright say something different? I've never actually looked into what the rules say word for word. I've kind of just skimmed over it for the most part, but I've never actually sat down and read word for word what the rules say for MMA. Sometimes the UFC, I think before a card even starts, posted in the very beginning saying this fight is scored by effective grappling / striking, but I never really knew what it says in writing on paper, word for word, what the actual rules are. So for this, I want to see if the judges actually are scoring based on what the rules say, and maybe we're all idiots, or maybe the rules just suck and maybe the wording is just terrible in it and we just don't know that up until now. So I decided to do my due diligence and look up the unified MMA rules and even go to the Nevada State Athletic Commission and see what they even had written in their rules and see if these rules are good rules, bad rules, or do they need changing at all? All right, so I just pulled up the Unified Rules of Mixed Martial Arts. This is on abcboxing.com. I know it says boxing on it, but trust me, this is based on MMA. I chose not to do the NSAC version because the NSAC version is not as simple as this. This basically puts it all into one good paragraph to where we can transition from this over to the NSAC rules. You'll know what I mean in just a second. I just wanted to start out with this because it's more easy to digest in terms of wording, whereas the whole NSAC one you'll see is a whole list of just bullet points that makes it kind of hard to understand at times. But this little paragraph right here is basically the biggest overview or the biggest synopsis of how judges should score fights in MMA. And as it reads, it says, effective striking / grappling shall be considered the first priority of round assessments. Effective aggressiveness is a plan B and should not be considered unless the judge does not see any advantage in the effective striking / grappling realm. Cage / ring control plan C should only be needed when all the other criteria are 100% even for both competitors. This will be an extremely rare occurrence. The prioritized criteria is the effective striking / grappling. So judges score fights based on effective striking / grappling. Now, I don't know about you guys, but what is effective grappling / striking? What does that even mean? That can be open to interpretation. For example, the Merab and O'Malley fight, a judge could argue that O'Malley had more effective striking than Merab had effective grappling. I think that's really up to interpretation. And if somebody questions him on that, then they can just refer to the rule book and say, the criteria is prioritized on effective striking grappling. I believe that O'Malley had more effective striking. That could possibly be a thing. So what does this even mean? What does effective striking / grappling even mean? What does it entail? So luckily for us, the NSAC, the Nevada State Athletic Commission, actually defines that for us in their own rulebook. Now moving on to the NSAC rulebook, as you can see, this page is a lot more in depth and it gives you a lot more stuff to read. That's why I wanted to bring up that first page, because this is like 40 something pages long or 30 something pages long. It's a lot of information. I want just to get to the point and make it quick and easy for you guys to digest. Now, I'll just save effective aggressiveness for later. I want to get into what actually effective grappling and effective striking means. So, starting off with effective grappling, it says effective grappling means the successful execution of takedowns, submission attempts, and reversals, and the achievement of advantageous positions that produce immediate or cumulative impact with the potential to contribute to the end of the match, with the immediacy of the impact being weighed more heavily than the cumulativeness of the impact. So basically, what this is saying is that if you get takedowns, submission attempts, or reversals that can lead to the end of the match, then that should be scored very highly. So I assume that if you just get a takedown and don't do anything with it, then that's not contributing to the end of the match. That's just getting a more advantageous position. So really, you can say that effective grappling isn't just getting takedown. Unless you're producing a cumulative impact that could lead to the end of the fight, then it's not effective grappling. So I know that one point that Guru had in his video was the knees to the thigh. He counted them, but if my interpretation is correct, then that's not really effective grappling. I don't think that knees to the thigh have ever produced a finish in the UFC. I know low kicks have, but I don't think any fighter in the UFC has finished someone by just kneeing the thigh. So could that be effective grappling? Maybe to an extent, maybe depends on the fight. But personally, I don't think holding body locks and kneeing the thigh or just sitting in the clinch and foot stomping and other different means of fighting that people do that can be pretty boring, I don't know if that is effective grappling or not. Because again, it either has to provide an immediate impact to where like this could be a fight ending sequence. For example, Alexander Volkanovski versus Brian Ortega, when Volkanovski was posturing up and landing heavy ground and pound on Brian Ortega, that was immediate impact, and that should be called or considered effective grappling. And you can even consider that cumulative damage because of the fact that it was going on for quite a bit of time. So I feel like that's the best example of effective grappling that I can possibly give you. Obviously, they also talk about submission attempts. I think if they're close, I think if they're almost in, maybe they are in and they break out of it, those should be scored heavily as well. Now, reversals, I don't really think are that impactful. Like maybe it can happen if somebody does do a reversal and then goes for ground and pound afterwards or goes for a submission attempt afterward, then you can score it. But just the aspect of reversals in itself, I don't really find that to be amazing. As long as they do something with it, then I will call it effective grappling. But I think all of these other things like foot stomps and knees to the thigh and maybe just light total strikes when somebody's in full guard, I don't really consider that effective grappling because that isn't something that's cumulative enough to lead to the end of a fight. Nobody's getting finished by little slaps to the head in full guard. Nobody's getting finished by foot stomps. Nobody's getting finished by knees to the thigh. That's just something that we haven't seen in the UFC yet. Maybe sometime in the future, we might see somebody get finished by knees to the thigh. That would be crazy. But again, I don't really consider that to be effective grappling. So should we even count knees to the thigh as a metric in the UFC? Because it's not really leading to the end of the fight. It's not cumulative damage that could lead to end of a fight. So I think the big point that I'm trying to make here is control time a part of effective grappling? And I don't think it is. I don't think pure control time is effective grappling. As the rules state, it has to be an advantageous position that can produce an immediate or cumulative impact that could lead to the end of the fight. Control time in itself is just a blanket sort of statement, and it's more about what happens inside of that control time and not just if you had control time. So I think the rules kind of back up the saying that control time is not scored and it shouldn't be scored because it doesn't really fit into the definition of effective grappling that the NSAC has on their own rule set. Now let's move on to effective striking and go ahead and read it out for you. It says that effective striking means legal blows that have an immediate or cumulative impact with the potential to contribute to the end of the match, with the immediacy of the impact being weighed more heavily than the cumulativeness of the impact. So obviously, if somebody's getting hurt, somebody getting knocked down, that can lead to the end of the fight. that should be scored very heavily. I think effective striking is probably one of the easiest ones to really talk about or define because it just makes sense. Somebody gets knocked down or gets hurt, that can lead to an end of the fight. If somebody's landing big shots, big overhand rights, that's really highly impactful, which they actually do define impact in this rule set. So I'll go ahead and read that out later. But overall, effective striking, I think, is pretty easy to score. And this is where I think kind of where the guru kind of loses the argument for O'Malley, because could you argue that he had effective striking against Merab? I don't really think so. Based on what happened round by round, specifically rounds 1 and 3, I don't think that anything O'Malley did could have any sort of cumulative impact that could lead to the end of the fight within those rounds. Obviously, this is scored round by round. We can't score what happened in the first round and the 5th round. So maybe you could say, well, all of those body shots that O'Malley landed added up in that 5th round. So then just the 5th round goes to O'Malley. But the 1st round and the 3rd round, yeah, he was landing some body shots and maybe he did outland Merab, but did any of those strikes, besides I believe one that might have busted open Merab's nose, do really any effective striking? I mean, obviously the key word in this whole definition is the word potential. So do you think that O'Malley's right hands to the body had the potential to finish Merab? Personally, I don't think they did. You could argue for it. You could argue they could do that, but I don't think any of the right hands or the body shots that O'Malley was landing in the 1st, 3rd round, I don't really think any of those had the potential to lead to a fight-ending sequence or an impact that could lead to some sort of hurtness from Merab. But with that being said, I do believe that effective striking is pretty self-explanatory for the most part. If you're doing immediate damage, obviously that should be scored really, really heavily. Now, what I wanted to get into was the term impact, because they do define it in the rule set here. And I do believe it's very, very important because the way they define impact is basically visible damage, right? The visible damage rule that we always talk about is defined in the term impact. Basically, the way the judges see impact is by visible damage like swelling or lacerations. They also look at it as if maybe if you get hurt on the feet and you go for a takedown, that would be considered impactful. Maybe a strike or a takedown leads to you gassing out in that round. Just something visible that the judges can see to determine how impactful that grappling was or that striking was. So the way I like to see this as the term impact, replace it for the word damage, because I do believe that that's what this is kind of implying when you talk about the term impact. If you see somebody get cut open by an elbow, that is impactful, which you can also use the word damaging in that aspect as well. I think impact and damage in this context are kind of synonymous. And so I do think if you do switch the word impact for the word damage, this would make a lot more sense. And I think that's why we get damage-based scoring, because the term impact basically is damage. And what these rules say is that doing more impact, aka damage, is going to lead you to win a fight. So that's where I think we get damage-based scoring from, because of the term impact and seeing the visible damage or the visible evidence of swelling or lacerations. And that's how fights should be scored. I don't believe that doing knees to the thigh and doing foot stomps are effective grappling. And that's where I think judges might get it mixed up, or people might get it mixed up because they see somebody getting controlled on the ground and they say, well, that's effective grappling. But if they aren't doing anything that could lead to the end of the fight or potentially lead to the end of the fight, then it's not effective. Little tapping body shots while in full guard is not effective grappling. You're not doing any damage that could lead to the end of the fight. Now, if you're doing elbows on top, if you're laying down heavy ground and pound, that's effective grappling, and that should be scored more highly. Now, one thing I do think people get a little bit mixed up is sometimes when a fighter gets taken down and they're controlled for a little bit of time and they don't really take any damage while being on bottom, once they get back up, if they land a few more strikes on the feet, they count that as them winning the round, which you can argue for that to be the case, but does that fall under effective striking? I don't know. I believe these rules are a little bit not specific enough. They try really hard to make this really thought out and defined very well, but I don't think that we can really get a huge grasp of what's actually supposed to be scored. I do believe these rules are 90% all the way there, but that last 10% is just missing a few points to make this like almost a great rule set. Because as we know, fights in the UFC, they can be very nuanced. It's not just as simple as this guy took this guy down, did some damage, and that was the whole fight. Sometimes fighters get back up and they do their own damage on the feet. Sometimes fighters get taken down and they get controlled, but they don't do any damage. There's a lot of nuance that happens inside of a UFC fight that can lead to different arguments. And maybe this is up to interpretation. I don't really think we should have AI judges. That would be absolutely horrific. I do like having natural human beings, human error inside of the octagon. As bad as it can be sometimes and how angry it does make me, we should still have it in the UFC. But I do think these rules just need a couple more points in there, just a couple more sentences each that makes it very, very clear on how judges can score fights. Because again, just reading effective grappling / striking, if you're only reading that and not going down here and scrolling down to the 31st page and reading what that actually means, then you can very well misinterpret what effective grappling / striking even is. And with the way these judges score fights nowadays, I'm inclined to believe that they only read the first paragraph and go, effective grappling, striking, okay, then aggressiveness, whatever. Okay, I'll score the fight after that. Like, I don't know if they're actually reading the whole, I think, 31 pages of this whole entire rule set. Maybe they are. Maybe they're required by the commission to actually read all of this. But if that's the case, man, then just score fights better then. Obviously, they're just half-assing it at this point. They're skimming through the whole thing like I did the first time, but I actually read what was supposed to be scored and thought about it cohesively. So I don't know. When it comes to effective grappling, I think that the main damage should be things that can lead to a fight-ending sequence, and holding body locks and knee in the thigh, getting in the clinch and foot stomping. Overall, just having control time is not anything that could lead to the end of the fight, and therefore it shouldn't be scored that heavily. I think it should only come into play. I think that should fall into the aggressiveness category. When everything is even, when the grappling is even, when the striking is even, who had top control, then we should score it like that. And do I believe that O'Malley and Merab had similar levels of effective grappling and striking? I think so. I think that Merab on the feet, maybe he was outlanded by O'Malley in the first and third, but I do think he did enough to where it could be somewhat similar on the feet. And it does define about breaking spirit in this, in the impact situation. I think O'Malley was visibly kind of out of there, which doesn't look good for the judges. So maybe I would consider Merab's grappling impactful, because if O'Malley is kind of gassing out, not showing good confidence, he's not having high spirit, whatever, it's all it says is in the rule book, by the way, then I do believe that that is impactful grappling on Merab's point. But kneeing the thigh, man, I don't know. It's pretty iffy. This is what I mean, because as I read that, or as I watched that fight, it was pretty obvious that O'Malley was kind of not having any confidence anymore, kind of getting tired in the ring, or octagon, sorry, and he just wasn't really producing as well on the feet. So Merab getting takedowns at control time technically is impactful grappling, but again, it's not anything that could lead to an immediate finish or a cumulative finish of the fight. So it's like, it feels kind of counterproductive as I'm like talking to myself in this video. So I don't know, maybe the whole rule set needs a complete overhaul. Get rid of effective grappling, effective striking, and replace it with better terms that make more sense or that are more specific. That would be my kind of conclusion to do with this rule set. I don't know. I might do a whole video on changing the rules and giving my own point of view on what the rules should be. So that might be a video that I do in the future. Sorry, this video was all over the place. I just kind of hopped on here and just kind of did it. I didn't really have this organized or structured. I just wanted to read and give a take, and I just had multiple different conflicting points of view in my head and just arguing myself over and over again. So this video is actually pretty hard for me to make. It's been about an hour of me recording. This video might be like 15 minutes long. We'll see how it goes. This video was actually pretty thought-provoking in my opinion for myself. So I guess for a conclusion, to wrap this video up in a bow, when it comes to the Guru, he has an argument, and I think the rule set allows for him to have that argument. But I also do believe that the rule set allows for Merab to have an argument, which I think is more of a problem on the rule set. Personally, I do think Merab won that fight. I think he won at least 3-2, maybe 4-1. I think the fifth is guaranteed for O'Malley. I watched the whole hour-long video of Guru talking about rounds 1 and 3. I'm personally not swayed that much, but I could be swayed. But again, I think that it is pretty close now, man. Like, I think we have to acknowledge that maybe it is pretty close. Maybe that fight was closer than what we originally thought. Based on the rule set, I mean, yeah, I think O'Malley can be argued to win the fight outright. Do I believe that? No, but maybe now that argument isn't like the worst thing I've ever heard in the world. Maybe my interpretation is bad. We'll see. Leave me a comment. Let me know how you feel. Obviously, I'm open to criticism here. So if you think that I'm wrong, feel free to comment down below. I'll read everything because, again, I don't really know. I'm trying to figure this out as well. So if you think I'm wrong or you think I'm right, maybe, or I think I need to change my viewpoint on things, just let me know because, again, I'm kind of confused. I don't know if you guys are, but I think I'm kind of lost in how this can be different from fight to fight and different situations in a fight, because sometimes in certain situations you can say that that was impactful and was damaging. Sometimes you can't say it was impactful or damaging. Like, it just really depends on fight to fight, and maybe that's how we have to just play it from now on. From fight to fight, we have to just go through the rule set. And maybe I might break down fights later by this. Maybe I might use this as a category and just see how impactful a lot of these things are. I don't know. If I'm making sense, let me know. If I'm not making sense, let me know. But that's pretty much it. I'm out here, guys. Like, subscribe, bell icon for notifications. I'll see y'all later. Peace.